wherever we are needed, we will fit in so that we make the city a city of golden opportunities.
Maybe just to add to that, so the Constitution says every person has to have access to healthcare facilities within a 5-kilometer radius. And that's the first thing that you look at when you do a housing development. So in this area, there is access to healthcare within a 5-kilometer radius. So the MMC is not necessarily going to need to develop a new facility, but just to make sure that there's information distributed to all the people here, they know where to go to access healthcare, and that we close whatever gaps that may be there. So yes, he's definitely a part of the team, but there's also an ECD facility. There will be space for ECD in the new development, so that will be under MFC Ashley Source the first as well, to make sure that the little ones are cared for in a place that's safe and that's respectable and developmental for the young ones.
And maybe just to indicate one thing, that the incident that occurred here previously, it was because of illegal connections. People had illegally connected to the grid. So what we have decided to do to mitigate against that incident to happen again, we then decided with the team that we will electrify these shacks temporarily so that they do not illegally connect to the grid. So we are going to do that so for us to prevent any future incident that might occur because of illegal connections.
If I can just say something as well. I think my presence here is really to support the MMC for housing and our executive mayor, but also just to ensure that the sporting facilities, recreation facilities, libraries, all of those are part of this process. And we just want to give the assurance that we're not only looking at this imploded area, but we're looking at the entire surrounding area in terms of beneficiation, and then also drawing our youth and women and people with disabilities into the development of this entire area. So whilst we're looking at this rubble now, think about it in 2 or 3 years' time when this entire area is going to be a brilliant area to live and play in.
So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. How are you? I'm okay.
All right, so we've reached the tail end of that media briefing there by Mpho Phalatse alongside the MMC for Housing in the city of Johannesburg, Mlungisi Mabaso. Mpho Phalatse is obviously the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Ahmed Kajee is our reporter who you've just seen step into frame there. He's been listening in closely on what's being said. And Ahmed, if you are able to hear us, grand plans coming from the city of Johannesburg, but a bit scant on the details around timelines.
Yes, and that's one of the big things which actually have been coming out of this particular briefing this morning by Mayor Mpho Phalatse and the MMC for Housing, Mlungisi Mabaso. He was pressed several times actually in terms of deadlines on when we can see concrete actions being taken place and when developments can be expected. And unfortunately from, I guess, for those residents of Johannesburg and this particular region, there haven't been those particular deadlines being given forward. A big part of the reasoning, he says, is because various feasibility studies, various environmental studies need to take place, and until that is actually concluded, he can't provide any particular details as well, which I guess is perhaps a bad sign, or at least something that not many people would be very excited about for those living in this particular area. I'm just going to take a quick step to my right-hand side so you can just see the main construction site, which was more or less the presence, or where the Kaserne building actually was just until about an hour ago, and this particular site is now officially imploded as well. And actually to the left-hand side, if we can maybe pan in a few moments' time as well, you will see some informal structures just after the green fencing on your left. And that's actually all informal structures which have come up over the last few years as well. And the homeless people who were living in this particular building last year, April, when that deadly fire had claimed the lives of 9 people, those people have been relocated to the corrugated iron shacks, which we had seen from the highway earlier on when we were situated at our vantage point as well. So those temporary emergency accommodation facilities were set up But in terms of formal housing within this particular area, there seems to be a great need for it by the residents, and many actually have come through to ask questions around when they will be getting adequate housing in this particular area, when they will be getting adequate access to resources, adequate access to healthcare, adequate access to education. These are various challenges being faced by the city of Johannesburg's residents as well. And what the Mayor Mpho Phalatse also mentioned was the fact that there are various other buildings in and around the city of Johannesburg which have been identified to be turned into new multi-purpose zones, both for retail, commercial and residential properties as well. She says the biggest challenge at this particular moment is to just ensure that those which do have occupants already is to provide them with temporary emergency accommodation, and this tends to generally take a bit more longer as well when it comes through to that particular process. In terms of the empty buildings, these are the ones which actually are being identified and being worked on a sooner rather than later basis, because there isn't the need to relocate any particular individuals as well. So in terms of the inner city rejuvenation by Dr. Mpho Phalatse and her office, they say they will be working in and around the city. But Ayanda, in terms of deadlines on when we can expect any developments beyond the formation of the foundation within this particular area, MMC for Housing Mlungisi Mabaso was very, perhaps unclear and wasn't willing to give us any concrete deadlines or any perhaps months or any years on when we can expect any developments. He says due to the fact that many processes need to take place, he cannot commit to any particular deadlines as well. Ayanda.
Briefly, Ahmed, we're told from the MMC that some of the fires that we saw at that building were caused by illegal connections. How are they preventing a repeat of this in the future?
Well, they haven't provided any indications on any preventions around illegal connections. And to give you a bit of context, and I think perhaps when we chat again a bit later on this morning, Ayanda, you will see there's various illegal settlements in and around this particular area, perhaps all the way back towards the highway over there. That's actually one of the highways heading towards the M2 East and the M2 West, just after your shot, towards the top of your shot as well. And those are illegal settlements in and around this particular area. And if one was to perhaps look behind your shot, which we will take you to a bit later on, there's various illegal connections in and around this area. In terms of what the city has mentioned, they haven't pointed out any concrete actions that they will be taking to perhaps remove illegal connections. And when it comes to those connections, apart from electricity being important to be accessible to those in and around the city of Johannesburg, the electricity connections specifically need to be safely connected as well. And with the absence of that, that's how these particular fires tend to generally start, along with various other factors which infrastructure development officials normally would understand. So in terms of, to answer your question on what they have indicated with regards to illegal connections, no concrete commitments have been made just yet.
Kajee, live to us there from the Joburg inner city. That's where the demolition of the Kaserne building had taken place.